Victor Wembanyama was slated to be one of the best players in the NBA since well before he was even drafted. To this point, he has mostly lived up to those expectations. His rookie year is one of the best we've ever seen, instantly dominating on defense and showing that his offensive game was more polished than we initially thought. In year 2, he established himself as a top 10 player in the league before his season ended prematurely due to blood clots. Now entering year 3, many people are projecting this to be the year where he really starts to take over and leap into top 5 conversations. From what we've seen from the preseason, there is plenty of reason to buy into that notion, but at the same time, being a top 5 player in year 3 is historically very difficult to do. That would put him up there with the likes of LeBron, Durant, Duncan, Shaq, MJ, Bird, Kareem, Wilt, and Russell. Wemby's ceiling is that of an all-time great even on their caliber, but is he ready to live up to that potential with less than 120 games under his belt? Let's talk about it. First things first, let's get a few things out of the way that should be easy to identify as things that Wemby is already set to dominate in. And I'm talking about defense, of course. Victor is already the best defender in the NBA, and I don't even really think it's all that close. He was runner-up for DPOY in his rookie season, making the all-defensive first team. The Spurs have yet to be a top defense overall with him at the helm, but when he's on the floor, they absolutely are. In his rookie year, the Spurs had a defensive rating of 119.8 with him off of the floor and 114 with him on the floor, meaning that they played essentially the 12th best defense that year with him and the second worst defense without him. And in year 2, the gap gets much wider with a defensive rating of 120.5 without Wemby and 112.7 with him, making them as good as the 8th best defense with him and the single worst defense in the NBA without him. That's an insane level of impact among some of the best ever. San Antonio should overall try and improve that defense for them to be truly elite overall on that end, but this goes to show that Wemby's value on defense is just insane. A top 10 defense with him and the worst in the league without him. His rim protection is off of the charts, leading the league in blocks per game both years so far, and there's no reason to think that he won't do that again. He absorbs an insane amount of space, and he's really quick on his feet, so he can defend the perimeter quite well. On top of that, the question of Wemby's impending dominance has nothing to do with defense. He already has that on lock, pun not intended. His issues when it comes to entering top 5 conversations is his offense. Even if his defense is off the charts, his overall impact does not hold up to that of Shea or even a prime Luka, which I'm expecting Luka to be back in his prime this year. Technically, to be top 5, he does not have to be better than either of those two, especially when Jason Tatum is off of the board this year, but getting to their level of impact would make that placement among the league's best players rather definitive. I'm not expecting him to eclipse Giannis or Jokic, but I don't think it's out of this world to think that he could be up there with Luka and Shea. Also, just as a quick side note, I really don't know why so many people seem to think that SGA is better than Giannis now. I'm like the king SGA glazer on YouTube. Well, actually, I'm probably second to 3Cone, but as phenomenal as Shea was last year, I think it's a little ridiculous to say that he has surpassed Giannis. I think people just got used to how insane Giannis was, and the winning hasn't put him at the top of the main conversation anymore. But nah, I just don't think you can say that he's better than Giannis, in my opinion. But anyways, back to Wemby. Offense is the question. Last year, Wemby's offense was pretty controversial. A lot of it was old head players and fans who pull out what's left of their hair every time the guy takes a three-pointer, but the criticisms were not without merit, to be sure. Last year, Wemby took 8.8 three-pointers per game, and he shot 0.8% below league average. The volume placed him among some of the most prolific three-point shooters in the game. Only 8 players attempted more threes than him per game last season, and all but one, Jason Tatum, were guards. And all of them, again besides for Tatum, shot a better percentage. Most of them, 6 of them actually, shot more than 2% better. Meanwhile, Wemby attempted 9.9 two-point field goal attempts per game, which ranks 27th. And among big men, he ranked 10th. He only attempted zero point 0.1 more two-point field goals than Nikola Vucevic, and to make matters worse, he shot a lower percentage than Vucevic. If Wemby wants to be a top 5 player in the league, his inside the arc scoring numbers need to be more impressive than fucking Nikola Vucevic. We have all seen what Wemby is capable of as a finisher, and I see no reason why he can't be literally the most effective lob target in the history of the NBA. Forgive me, but I do have one more sidebar here. I feel like NBA fans don't talk enough about how more prevalent lobs are in today's game. I watched a preseason Mavs versus Hornets game the other day, and there were like 8 lobs between both teams. And then I watched the 93 finals recently, and I think there was 2 in the entire 6-game series. The Lob City Clippers had some real influence, man. They turned the shot from a mostly highlight gimmick to now every NBA team needing a quote-unquote lob target. Anyways, Wemby's insane length has led to him having a ton of super impressive finishing ability, and when he gets to the rim, right at the rim from 0 to 3 feet, he shoots 81%, which is among some of the best in the league. He just needs to do it more. I also think he could stand to cut down on the mid-range jumpers as well, because he's just kind of okay at them. I wouldn't want him to stop altogether for the sake of development, as well as just having that in his back pocket. But to me, an ideal version of Wemby is taking like 6 to 7 threes per game and 12 to 14 two-point shots, mostly right at the rim. As of now, he's taking just 1 out of every 5 of his shots right at the basket, and I don't think that's the most effective use of his skill set and especially his size. A big part of the reason that Wemby was so hyped in the first place was his guard skills paired with his ridiculous frame. So I'm not trying to turn the guy into Shaq, which is what a lot of old head players have been doing. Like, no, he can still take 3-pointers. I don't think he needs to not take threes. But when you are this big and this gifted as a finisher, you are doing your team a disservice by doing it this infrequently. On the spectrum between guard-like play and big man play, I would like to see him lean into the big man stuff. Not abandon the guard stuff, but lean more towards the 7-4 part of his game than the jump shooting ball handling part of his game. And on a positive note, that is something that we have seen from him a good bit in the preseason. In Monday's game versus Indiana, he attempted 13 shots in 24 minutes of action. 3 of those shots were threes. The other 10 featured only 1 mid-range attempt. He had 3 dunks, including a lob and a tip. He also bodied the fuck out of J-Huff. And overall, he went 6 for 9 at the rim. That is a shot attempt ratio that I am a lot happier with. The other thing that I've been happy with is how much he has been bodying people. One of the main reasons Wemby defaults into jump shot so much is physically pushing around other players is really tiring. It's especially tiring when you don't have a lot of meat on your bones, regardless of how tall you are. But his mentality was also a pretty clear barrier. Luckily, he has put on some muscle. He is always going to look skinny with that frame, but he isn't in twig territory anymore. And that combined with a more aggressive mindset has seemingly shifted his playstyle in the right direction. On top of 9 shots being right at the rim in that game, he also attempted 7 free throws. One of them was as a result of an and one, but the other 6 were all from drawing fouls right at the rim. He also attempted 10 free throws in just 15 minutes against the Utah Jazz. That is another way that Wemby could put more pressure on the defense and get his numbers up while he's at it. Among players who attempted around as many shots as Wemby last year, we will limit the range to 18 to 20 attempts just to keep it, within reason. There are 26 players last year who were in that field goal attempt range, and 23 of them have a higher free throw rate than Wemby. To put it simply, that is not good. Like, not good at all. Kevin Durant, who never drives anymore, gets to the line more than Wemby. Stephen fucking Curry gets to the line more than Wemby. That needs to change as soon as possible, especially given how good he is at hitting them for a 5. He shot 83.6% from the line last year, which ranked 4th among big men, only behind Jonas Valanciunas, Lauri Markkanen, and John Collins. Hopefully, this volume issue will be solved by him attempting more shots at the rim. In fact, it almost certainly would. Whether he makes these changes or not, we will have to see. But let's just, for the sake of argument, let's simulate the effects of these changes and how it would affect his point per game mark. Let's say Wemby doubles his shots from 0 to 3 feet, which results in an 8% dip in his efficiency, because more volume generally means worse efficiency, at least in terms of actual shots. I'm not going to apply the same logic to the free throws, but these rim shots also, again, hypothetically, double his free throw attempts. He also takes 6 threes a game instead of nearly 9, and he reduces his mid-range shots a good bit. Let's also say he bumps his field goal attempts to 20 instead of 18.6. That is 8.4 shots at the rim, 6 shots from 3, 5.6 shots from mid-range, and 8.2 free throw attempts per game. At 72% at the rim, we'll say 37% from 3, 44% on all other 2s because that's around where he's at for last year, and 83% from the line. That would result in a 30-point per game mark for Wemby. All things considered, I think those are some relatively reasonable adjustments, and it gets him into the 30-point per game club. If he does that, yeah, undeniably he would be top 5 next year. Hell, he doesn't need to score 30 to get into that territory. If he could get to the 26 to 28 range, that still does him a lot of good. There would still be a few guys better at scoring than him, but not by much, all while he has a pretty big gap between them defensively, other than Giannis, but even then I still think there's a gap there. The last thing that I want to highlight is the most under-discussed aspect of Wemby's game, his playmaking. Through 4 preseason games, it's been a mixed bag. His assist volume is higher, but his turnovers are also way up. He averaged 4.75 assists and the exact same amount of turnovers. Not ideal. In general, he has been attacking more off of the dribble, and he seems to have his head up ready to make the pass more, but obviously these results aren't exactly super encouraging. Even still, he has shown high-level playmaking chops before, especially out of a center, and I'd like to see him and the Spurs lean into that a little bit more. Last year, he averaged 3.7 assists per game. I'd like to see him get that up to 5 this year. Speaking of playmaking, the final factor worth mentioning in regards to Wemby's ascent is the playmaking around him. Between his nearly uncontestable three-point shot, his ability as a lob target, as a roll man, and a dunker spot guy, Wemby could pretty easily become the best play finisher in the history of the NBA, a point guard's dream. Last year, he benefited from Chris Paul's presence quite a bit, but as I always like to highlight whenever I get the chance, passing is not playmaking, or at the very least, it's not all that playmaking is. Old-ass Chris Paul has very little scoring gravity, and the same can be said for Trey Jones, who played a good bit with him earlier on in his career. As a result, the defense was never compelled to leave Wemby really any daylight, because he's far more scary as a roll man than either Paul or Jones are as pull-up shooters or slashers. This should be quite different this year. Unfortunately, Wemby dealt with his blood clot issue right after the Spurs landed De'Aaron Fox. While I don't think Fox is the most outstanding passer in the world, he is still very good at it and notably has a ton of scoring gravity. As a result, he can put pressure on the rim, break down the defense, and create opportunities for Wemby that he previously has not had. They also added Dylan Harper, who has looked really good so far, another guy who can score and pass really well, another guy the defense is going to be wary of after he turns the corner. Add onto it another year of development for Stephon Castle, and that should mean that no matter what, there will be a high-level playmaker on the floor with Wemby at all times, which makes his goal of more shots around the rim far more doable. So to answer the question, is Wemby ready to be definitively a top 5 player in the NBA next season? Well, I'm leaning towards yes. Even if he doesn't have a picture-perfect shot diet, I have little doubt that he will improve it pretty substantially this year. And that's really the only thing that's held him back offensively to this point. Wemby had a fucking storybook offseason. Bro went through a whole character arc. He worked out with Hakeem Olajuwon and Kevin Garnett. He was literally out there training with monks. I have bought into this being the year he really asserts himself among the league's best, and year 4 could begin the arc of him potentially challenging Jokic for the title of best player in the NBA. I mean, all he has to do to be top 5 next year is be better than everybody who is not Jokic, Giannis, Shea, and Luka. And I think the next best player after that is like Jalen Brunson or Anthony Edwards or Devin Booker, whoever you want to say it is. It's a player who Wemby could be better than for sure. The guy is just a wild player, and I am dying to see him live up to his potential, but ultimately time will tell. I'm optimistic, but I'm also not certain. It's all predictions at the end of the day. But that is it. Let me know what you think Wemby's 2025-26 season will look like, but that is it. Goodbye.